Hello everyone, my name is Eric Salahub. I am a philosophy faculty member and instructional coach at Front Range Community College in Fort Collins, Colorado. And as you can see from the title up there above my image, I'm here to talk about moving your class online. If you're a face-to-face teacher and you've now been tasked with moving your class online, or you think that that's something you might be doing, which I'm going to say you should really be thinking about, I'm here to see what I can do to help you. I've spent the last 25 years of my career designing and teaching online courses, working as an instructional coach, helping my colleagues teach and design online courses, and I fully realize the challenge that you are being faced with. And so if I can offer something that will help you, teacher to teacher, instructional coach to faculty, friend to friend, I am happy to do that. This is certainly not a comprehensive guide to designing an online class. This is really what I would offer my friends and colleagues in terms of simply framing the challenge that you have and surviving that challenge throughout the rest of the semester so you can actually help your students learn as much as possible in this trying time that we're all facing. I'm going to probably spend about a half an hour, and at the end of this, I'm going to offer you my email address, and if you decide that there's something that I've talked about that's worthwhile and meaningful, I have some follow-up documents and supplemental materials that I am happy to give you access to. And so these are the sorts of things I want to talk about today. I know your time's valuable, so I'm going to move quickly, and that probably means talking fast. So the first thing I think you want to do before you start looking at tools or reading a whole bunch of tutorials is set yourself some reasonable expectations and think about your students and set reasonable expectations for them. Let's be realistic. If you're canceling face-to-face classes for the rest of the semester, like we are, that's what we just found out that we're doing, people have other things to worry about, including you. And so I just want to say this will probably not be the best semester of classes that you've ever taught. And I think it just makes sense to be grounded in the reality that people are going to be stressed out and worried. Students may be at home on computers with limited broadband access. They may be accessing your online class through their cell phone. You or they or all of you may have limited technology skills, even using the learning management system that you're probably the most familiar with. I am not saying to relax rigor completely. I am saying let's be realistic about what we can accomplish, and whatever you design, make it something that's doable for you and for your students. There is really no point in shooting for the moon and designing something that ends up crashing and burning, or that stresses you and your students out so much that you end up getting sick. So I want to ask you to think about what you can do and to do that in a way that's doable and workable. Do not try to recreate your face-to-face class. If you're experienced as a face-to-face teacher, then you have a very good sense of what your role is and what you do every day and what the expectations you have for students. And you may be tempted to cling to the comfort of your Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, or what you have students do in labs, or what they're doing in their simulations or practicums. I am going to ask you to try to not think about recreating your face-to-face class. That is probably a recipe for confusion and frustration, both for you and your students. I know you may be thinking about live streaming your classes. Maybe the lowest hanging fruit for you is to think about bringing a video camera into your class and simply videotaping yourself talking to an empty room or working problems on a board. There may be cases where live streaming using Zoom or WebEx or some other tool makes sense. I'm going to suggest that only think about that if you absolutely have to. I'm going to suggest that that is probably not a best practice. What I do think you should think about is weekly pacing. You have a face-to-face class that's currently meeting once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, or it's meeting for lecture and lab. Whatever you decide to do online, I'm going to encourage you to build in some pacing into that online experience for students. I've read some online tutorials and suggestions that are going to tell you to put everything due at the end of the week. My suggestion is that is not a best practice because that is not how students learn. Students learn by spacing out study and getting feedback throughout the course of a week. They may be taking multiple classes that are getting moved online, and if every deliverable is Sunday at 11:59 p.m., that is going to be a strain on students and a strain on teachers. I'm going to suggest, and I'll talk more about it, that you think about pacing out the work that you're going to ask students to do, the work that you're going to be doing online, the feedback and opportunities for teaching and learning over the course of a week. You may be thinking about proctoring exams. We don't want students to cheat. We want academic integrity. But I will just let you know that proctoring is a difficult thing to do online. It is possible, but it is adding a layer of complexity and a set of hurdles in front of you and your students that may be moving your eyes from what is really important. I think there are other ways to maybe make sure that students are doing their own work without proctoring. For instance, setting a time limit on an exam, or rewriting an exam so it is not easily something that students can cheat on. And maybe the fact that students might cheat, while important, is not the number one concern we should have right now. And don't lecture. To some extent or another, if you're a face-to-face teacher, you're a lecturer. You're used to being at the front of the room, you're used to talking, you're used to delivering information and content and showing PowerPoint slides and working problems or orchestrating the class live. You will not be able to do that in your online role. That is one of the reasons you may be thinking about live streaming. I'm going to say that this is actually a benefit because I will talk about putting content online. Whatever that means to you, you will not be lecturing in your online class, which will free up your time as a teacher to do other things that you and your students will need. Focus on essentials and keep it as simple as possible. Focusing on essentials really means to think about what really matters for your students for the rest of the semester. Where do they need to be in May or June or whenever your semester ends? What are the most essential learning outcomes? What are the most essential skills? What are the most essential facts or content that they absolutely have to have? What are those experiences or learning opportunities that are critical and that you can't get rid of or that you can't translate or move somewhere else? Keep it as simple as possible. Yes, there are really cool tools out there like Zoom and Flipgrid and Google Slides and you name it, 100 awesome interactive tools. I'm going to suggest that you keep it as simple as possible because every tool you have to learn is a tool your students are going to have to learn. It's a set of troubleshooting that most likely you're going to be doing on your own because your IT staff will be burdened with other things. I'm going to suggest, and I'll talk more about it later, that you look at your learning management system and pick the simplest tools that are in there, the quiz tool, the discussion tool, the assignment Dropbox tool, the announcement tool, those things that you and your students are already the most familiar with. You may not be that familiar with them, but those are the go-to things that your school has already designed. There is likely already training in place, tutorials in place. Even if you're not familiar with your LMS and the basic tools, your students probably are. Those may not be sufficient, but my advice is to start there and to actually focus on what really matters. What really matters? Avoid the paradox of choice. Don't give your students a whole bunch of options. Narrow options for them. I am suggesting that when you look at the internet and see a list of 50 tools that you can use, to avoid looking at that list. I am trying to narrow choices for you, offering my expertise on and experience on what I think is the most essential thing for you to put into this new online course you're developing. What really matters, and everything you do in your class from now until when you are teaching that online class, focus on what really matters for you and your students and their learning. Let everything else fall to the side, and if you end up with extra time, you can bring some of those other things back in. Whatever you do, be consistent. Whatever tools you decide to use, let your students know what those tools are. Be consistent. Be consistent in the way you give information to students, display information to students, and communicate with students. And plan for change. Um, I don't know what's going to happen to internet broadband if hundreds of thousands of teachers start putting classes online. Initially, we were thinking we would probably move our classes online for 2 weeks, and then within 24 hours, we were thinking about an entire semester. So plan for things to get more difficult and not easier. Identify the priority learning outcomes. What is it that your students actually need to be able to do by the end of the semester? What are those skills? What is that knowledge? What are those abilities that you need students to be able to do by the end of the semester? That is what you should be thinking about. And again, let everything else settle to the bottom and fall to the side for now. What's your elevator pitch? If you had to tell a student what is the most important thing that you need to know by the end of the semester, what will you be able to do by the end of the semester? What kind of learning do you actually want your students to be able to achieve by the end of the semester? Not what exam you need to be able that they need to be able to pass. I mean, that's something important. But what do you want them to remember beyond the end of the semester? How can you focus on those critical learning outcomes that they absolutely need? Because I'm going to be honest with you, that may be all that you will be able to help your students achieve this semester. What really matters in your course? What really matters for students? Keep your focus there. One way to think about that is you're probably at the midterm. Maybe you're on a quarter system. Maybe you've got a week, 10 weeks left of the semester. Think about those milestone markers in your course, the midterms, the papers, the projects, the practicum, the summative assessments. You may decide to change those because when you decide on what really matters, maybe this exam you have written now is not the exam you're going to give. Maybe that project that you had designed or the case study or the whatever it is, the simulation or the practicum is not going to be possible. But if you want to help your students succeed, you need to decide what those milestone assessments are, those places in your course where students get to demonstrate what they've learned, and then you're going to plan backwards from there. Maybe you're going to keep your summative assessments. Maybe that paper still works. Maybe that exam is still applicable. If so, plan backwards from there. What do students need to be able to practice day to day? What feedback do you need to be able to give them on the way so that they can actually have a chance of succeeding on that summative assessment? You're probably thinking about putting content online. As a teacher in the current teaching and learning paradigm in face-to-face classes, you are a content expert, and your main job is often to deliver content to students through lecturing, through showing and delivering PowerPoint slides, through telling stories, through orchestrating in-class discussions, through working problems or demonstrating problems, or working in a lab and showing students what to do. Maybe you're a welder, maybe you're someone who teaches jewelry, or you're a vet tech instructor, or you're a nursing faculty. Whatever you are, you're probably now thinking, how do I actually do the thing that I would have done in my face-to-face class in an online format? I guess I'm just here to suggest that there are no lectures in an online class. I am not going to tell you that you should spend the next 40 hours recording your lectures and putting them online. That is not advice I'm going to give you. Your students may or may not watch them, and time doing that may be time wasted from doing what I think you should be doing, which is designing learning experiences for your students using the simple tools that you have available to you. You have a textbook. It's probably there. You don't think your students are reading it. You already have PowerPoints and documents, and you may be able to look online and find videos that you can have your students watch. If you need to put content online, decide what the absolutely necessary content is and upload it to your file management system in your LMS. Put some documents in there. Maybe you have some PowerPoints that you want to screencast and narrate for your students, but make them as short as possible. Maybe you have reading guides for your students because now they're actually going to have to utilize the textbook. Or maybe you're going to spend a day scouring YouTube to find videos that already exist. I'm a philosophy teacher. There are a ton of awesome philosophy videos. There's a whole series called Crash Course Philosophy. They're 15-minute videos. They're not exactly what I would do in class, but there is no point in me recreating something that I can find in 5 minutes and put in my class. Don't overload your class with content, but I know your students need to get content. They need to have knowledge in order to be able to do the work you want them to do. But I'm just, again, going to suggest that limit the amount of time you focus on putting content online and delivering content, and frame your thinking as a teacher about how are you going to design the teaching of the class into the online course. Organize the content as simply as you can and present it in a way that's consistent for students. You're going to need to reframe your role as a teacher. I am someone who is really interested in active learning. I work with faculty over the course of a semester or a year to think about reframing them from a deliverer of content to a learning facilitator. If you're going to move your class online, I'm just going to suggest that for the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks, you don't have the luxury of deciding that you want to be a transmitter of knowledge. You are going to have to reframe your thinking, and you're going to have to become a course designer, because your students are going to go online and they're going to want to know, what should I be doing? What assignments should I be doing? How do I turn those in? How am I going to get feedback from you so I know if I'm learning? How am I going to be working with my fellow classmates if I need to? And that is really about designing a class. How do you design in the experience for your students to gain knowledge, practice skills, get feedback? How do you facilitate their learning? You're used to doing that in a face-to-face environment where you may be literally watching and walking over and seeing them, listening to them, talking to them, handing papers back. You're going to have to come up with new ways to do that, and I'm here to help you do that. What you want to do is reframe your role from transmitter of knowledge to creator of teaching and learning moments. And once you've created those opportunities for students to do the work, because that's when they're going to learn, how do you make sure you're actually there to be a teacher? Your students are going to need you to be there for them. If you want to be in your class and have an opportunity to actually help your students learn, if you want to be able to give them feedback when they need it and intervene in their learning, you're going to have to actually design those opportunities to happen. You're going to need to reframe who you are as a teacher. This is part of it, right? Maybe you're going to write some lecture notes or upload some content, or maybe you're going to create a series of 10-minute video lectures or some screencasts. That's a part of online teaching. But once you've uploaded that content into your learning management system, the teaching becomes what you're actually doing when you're interacting with students. You're going to be reading and responding to email because students are going to have confusions. Or you're going to be telling those students to go post to a question and answer discussion topic. You're going to be posting discussion questions. You're going to be facilitating. You're going to be giving feedback. You're going to be grading. Maybe you're going to be a participant facilitator in discussion. Or you're going to have your students working together in a discussion area and you're going to be facilitating their work. Maybe you're going to hold some video chat sessions or some online text chat sessions. Maybe that's what teaching is, because you're getting to intervene. I really think most of what you're going to be doing is creating opportunities to watch students work, see their work in progress, and give them feedback individually, or even better yet, as a whole class, because that is much more efficient in an online class. How do you think about creating these online teaching and learning experiences? You know what that means in a face-to-face class. A great discussion is a teaching and learning experience that happens when teachers and students are interacting with each other. If you're putting your students in small groups, that's a teaching and learning experience. They're teaching and learning, they're learning with each other, you're there to intervene. If you're in a lab setting, that's what happens. If you're in the auto shop, that's what's happening. How do you translate that over into thinking about being someone who's doing that in an online format? Again, think about, what do students need to be able to practice? What are those outcomes that you're going to be measuring them with the next essay or the next paper or project or exam? What do they need to practice? How can you allow them to practice that in an online setting? Is that individual work? And if that's the case, I'm going to suggest you probably want to think about using your quiz tool for that. Is it interactive work? Well, then that's probably something you're going to want to use the discussion tool for. Create opportunities to watch students do the work and do the learning and be there to give them feedback. And as I mentioned previously, you should create multiple online class sessions. You probably are now teaching Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Don't recreate your face-to-face class, but give students multiple opportunities during the week for teaching and learning to happen so you can be there. They're going to appreciate the pacing and helping them figure out, how do I manage this online workload? I teach online. This is an online class that I teach with my teaching partner, Carrie Mitchell. This is an online class, but I suggest you do something like this for your face-to-face class. What do they need to accomplish during that week? It may be many different things. Do not give them a deadline only at the end of the week. What do they need to do at the beginning of the week? What do they need to do by the middle of the week? What do they need to do toward the end of the week? Be flexible. They may be sick or taking care of grandma, or their kids are out of school now and they're at home trying to juggle all of these other things. I'm going to suggest be empathetic, and if students miss deadlines, that's one thing. But stagger their learning, scaffold their learning during the week, if nothing else for your own sake. You're going to be stressed out too. Spread your teaching and learning and the work you're doing out over the course of a week. Make it doable. This is my suggestion, to come up with an agenda, set up deliverables during the week that help students pace themselves and have some sense of normalcy, and a workload that's manageable. If you've got an online week, it starts on Sunday and it runs through the next week on Saturday. There are no designated class sessions, but you can say something like this. We're going to really do 3 different things each week. You're going to have something due on Tuesday, something due on Thursday, and something due on Saturday. And maybe that's a Dropbox assignment, or maybe that's a discussion assignment, maybe that's a quiz or something else. And that doesn't even mean that you have to give them feedback, but you have an opportunity to give them feedback and to watch their learning. If they turn things in only at the end of the week, they will turn things in only at the end of the week, and there's going to be a content dump. This builds in opportunities for you to interact with students. You don't have to grab every single opportunity that exists, but if you don't build in multiple opportunities to intervene, they won't be there if you decide you need to use them. As I said, I'm going to suggest that you should keep it simple. I've been teaching online since 1994. Back then, online classes did not have streaming video. It was hard to upload an image because there was no broadband. There were no audio files. There were certainly no streaming two-way video. We taught classes through text. We taught classes through discussion forums and quizzes. There is no reason that you can't get much of the fidelity of your class that you want using the most simple tools that already exist in your learning management system. I'm not suggesting that these tools can do everything, but I am suggesting that it makes sense to start there. So I'm going to talk about 2 go-to uses for the discussion tool that I think will work in almost any class. Open discussion. That is something that replicates the dynamic all-class discussion that happens in almost every discipline, from vet tech to history to philosophy to math to the auto shop. And then we've got this kind of discussion assignment that I'm going to call post and reply. I've been teaching online forever. I've been coaching people teaching online. These are the 2 types of discussions that almost everyone uses. These are the go-to things that an online teacher uses. I'm a philosopher. I like Venn diagrams, and so I hope this doesn't confuse you. This circle represents the instructor. This circle represents the entire class. This circle represents each individual student. This is what open discussion looks like. The discussion tool in your learning management system is an interaction tool. That's what that tool is for. One of those interactions is where everyone is talking to everyone. It's an open discussion. You pose a question, you pose a series of questions, you pose an open-ended, thought-provoking issue that you want students to grapple with. They're all in there. They're posting, they're replying. You're in there too, just like it is in a face-to-face class. Open discussions are not for right and wrong answers. But I think every class should have an open discussion because this is your chance to interact with students on the fly. Put an open discussion in your class. There is something worth talking about. This can be low stakes, but this is going to be an opportunity for your students to be there, to see you, to interact with you, to interact with each other. I saw my face-to-face students yesterday for the last time in the semester. They were really freaked out. They really understood the emotional impact of never seeing each other again. I promised them we would have an online class where they could still work together. They're going to be scared. They're going to be home alone. Open discussion provides an opportunity for them to talk to each other, to talk to you, to experience teacher presence. They're going to be lonely and afraid. You will appreciate the opportunity to actually have low stakes, meaningful conversations with students. Create an open discussion. I'm happy to send this to you if you want this. This is just what I think some of the elements of an open discussion are, the workload considerations that I think might apply. So if you want more, email me. The other use that I think almost everyone can make of the discussion tool is post and reply. This usually works like this. Each student makes a post by a certain date. Then you read and reply to one or two other students by another date. And the instructor is often not an active participant. This is an extremely common discussion type. By Wednesday, make a post where you write a short paragraph addressing an issue, answering a problem, solving a problem. This doesn't have to be in text. Make a discussion post by Wednesday where you upload an image where you've worked a math problem, or followed a Venn diagram, or done a circuit diagram, or you've drawn something on a piece of paper that has something relevant to an auto shop and you've uploaded it. And then by Friday, read and reply to two other classmates, where you're critiquing, where you're offering a suggestion, where you're taking something further. Both the post and the reply are meaningful academic work. And what are you doing? You're either watching them as they go and intervening, or more likely, you're letting this work transpire over the course of a week, and then you're going to review that work at the end of the week, and you're going to send out an email with general feedback to the class. I'm going to just suggest that you're going to have to pick and choose where to give feedback. And whole class feedback is amazingly powerful in an online class. This post and reply type of discussion, again, will work in almost any class because you've got to expand your thinking about what a post and a reply might be. Again, I have a menu card that might talk about some of the ways that you could use this. I'm holding back showing you examples only because I realize I've already been talking for almost half an hour. But if you want more, email me. Two go-to uses for the quiz tool. Every learning management system has a quiz tool, and it is a tool that can be used in multiple ways, and I want to talk about two of them. One of them is what I'm going to call a content quiz, and the other one is what I'm going to call a guided thinking activity. And again, I think these are go-to uses that could fit in any online class, from nursing to math to chemistry, you name it. Content quizzes. Multiple choice, true, false, matching, short answer. All of the things that your learning management system will auto-grade and give feedback to students immediately. If you have a class with content, then you can write a content quiz. If you've got a textbook, write a quiz that tests students on the most important things out of the reading. Even if you don't normally give quizzes, create quizzes. Your publisher probably has a quiz bank that you can already get access to. Dump as many quiz questions in there as you can. If you want students to memorize, recall, gain currency with vocabulary or concepts, the best way for students to build memories is for them to test themselves over and over and over. Think about content quizzes as online flashcards. You may not be there to give your lecture, but you can build quiz banks where students can spend hours going through and actually memorizing and learning. Quizzes are not just to test students. Quizzes are an awesome way for students to learn. You can set up unlimited quizzing, and you can ask students to quiz to mastery. This is a sample from my class. I assign reading. I don't lecture because I teach online. I teach face-to-face too. But even in my face-to-face classes, I don't lecture. I make my students do the reading, and then I let them use quizzing as a self-assessment of how much they got out of the reading. And I expect my students to quiz to mastery. They don't all get 100%, but this shows me basic currency with the content. And then what can I do? I can go look at the questions they missed the most often, and I can do a dynamic lecture on that. This is awesome because once you build the quiz and set up the feedback, your learning management system will give that feedback to students automatically. Be careful, but you can actually build these kinds of quizzes where you can review a short answer. I'm just going to say be careful because everything you have to look at takes time. I'm going to suggest that if you want to take time using a quiz, that you're going to consider doing this thing that I'm calling a guided thinking activity. This is really just to take an in-class activity or a homework that you would typically give and make students do the work, keep their time focused, give them something meaningful to do in the quiz tool that's not a quiz. Guided thinking activities are really just ways to ask students to engage with content, with a question, to have them pause and do some writing, some thinking, working a problem, and then they move on to a second question or a problem or a video, and they're going to think about that, and they're then going to do some writing or thinking. It allows you to watch students in the act of learning and then to give them meaningful feedback. I'm just going to show you a sample. This is a super simple sample, but this is a quiz in my philosophy class, and you can see question 3. It's not a quiz question, it's a thought question. I'm trying to get students to show me their thinking. There's a right answer, right? I mean, that I'm getting at, that I want students to think about, that I want them to get closer to, but the point of this activity is not to grade them on whether they got right or wrong. It's to give them a chance to do the work so I can see them work. And you can see this is one of many questions. Often in a guided thinking activity, you might embed a video, a short 2-minute video or a 3-minute video in the question and say, watch the video, and they're actually watching the video because it's embedded in the quiz. And then you're going to say, then reflect on the video. And that video may be something you created. If you need students to watch short mini lectures, one way to make sure they watch those mini lectures is to embed the videos in a quiz and then ask students to do something with that mini lecture. This may be, for instance, demoing students. I'm going to need you to go to the library databases and do research. Here's how you do it. And you're going to do a little mini screencast of yourself accessing library databases, and then you're going to tell students to go do it. This is iterative writing, but it doesn't have to be writing. Students, you may have them, what? Demo a math problem, demo a chemistry, organic chemistry problem, show them something with a short YouTube video that you did, and then ask them, now, you go do it. Get your cell phone out, take a picture of what you just created, create a short 30-second video of yourself doing something, upload it to the quiz tool so I can look at it. Realize that the quiz tool that you already have access to has a tremendous power to let you interact one-on-one with students. How you do that with your learning management system, you can work on talking to your folks at your school. I think every class can benefit from a guided thinking activity. I put them in my class every week. My chemistry colleagues use them, my nursing colleagues use them, my auto shop colleagues use them. They can be used in any class, and it is comforting for students to actually have time on task to work through a problem. I think I've already said this, you should be scaffolding your online learning, and here's a few examples. Maybe you want them to start with an open discussion at the beginning of the week, and you're in there as a facilitator and a participant. And then after Tuesday, you think they've gained some currency, so then you're going to say, now go to the quiz tool and do one of these guided thinking activities. Or now that you've started with this open discussion and we've built some momentum, now go to this other kind of quiz or discussion activity and make a post and then reply later. And then you're going to follow up later in the week with individual or whole class feedback on what they did. Or maybe you're going to say, start the week with a guided thinking activity. And then you're going to review the work that your students did and decide what kind of feedback do they need. Do I need to record a mini lecture because they didn't get it? Or maybe they did get it, and so I can push them further. And then after that feedback that maybe comes in the middle of the week, you're going to then say, now go into the discussion area and we're going to move on and do this. These are just two samples of the sort of scaffolding and the sort of pacing that I think you should consider building into your online class. I've mentioned screencasting. It's a version of what I'm doing right now. I am creating this that you're watching with screencast-o-matic.com, and then I'm going to upload this to YouTube. All a screencast is a video recording of your computer screen showing mouse movements. You can often turn on a little talking head, or you can actually show yourself. This teacher presence, I don't know, I had it turned off for a minute or two. Your students are going to want to see your face. It may mean only uploading an image every week so they know you're still there, but humans want to see other humans. And one of the reasons my face-to-face students were freaked out yesterday is I think they were grappling with what it's going to be like sitting at home, not actually seeing anybody. I think screencasting is a super powerful tool. I think it can replace almost everything you think you need in terms of two-way interactive video. It is low-hanging fruit in terms of the difficulty, and I have a screencasting tutorial that I am happy to share with you, and I have tested it, and it will work. You can, in 20 minutes, start from scratch, create a screencast, upload it, and make it available to your students. This is me. This is my teaching partner, Carrie Mitchell, and this is us giving updates to our students. We do screencasts every week. It's the way we reach out to our online students, and we share our style, and we share our humor, and we let them know what's going on in class, and we praise them for the work they're doing. They're usually 5 minutes long. If I can reach out to you and say, if you could give your students a 3-minute video screencast every week or twice a week, that's going to go a long way in encouraging them to be motivated, to keep working on your class, because I know you want them to do that. You can also use screencasts to give whole class feedback to your students. Giving feedback to online students is time consuming, and you're going to have to pick and choose. And I'm just going to say that screencasting is a great way to reach out and say, you know, class, I've been following the discussions you're doing this week. Here are 2 or 3 things that I saw in there that were really awesome. If you haven't seen what Terry said or what Carrie said, or, you know, go back and take a look at that. Or here's where I think we should go with the rest of the week. Or here are the 4 common misconceptions that I saw. This is a great way to give one-on-one feedback to students. I use screencasts to give feedback to students on essays, and it is faster, it can be more authentic, and students pay attention more. So again, I clearly told you, because I've talked about it more than anything else, screencasting is super powerful, and I think you should do it. I think you should think about using the quiz tool, the discussion tool, and screencasting. I want you to take care of yourself. I'm an instructional coach. Coaches work for teachers. I want you to be there for your students, and I'm here for you so you can be there for your students. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to finish the semester. And so when I saw the reaction on my Facebook of some of my teaching colleagues, when they heard that they had to put their class online, I could just see the stress and the angst and the anxiety and the fear coming through those Facebook posts. Set yourself manageable expectations. Your leadership is going to want you to make it through the rest of the semester. Um, and so take care of yourself, help each other, be a resource for your friends and colleagues, be there for your students so they can be there for each other. Um, I have a set of documents, a set of tutorials, a set of examples, um, more on discussions, more on quizzes, more on pacing your class. I have a guide to screencasting. Reach out to me. What I'll probably do is send you a link to a Dropbox so you can just get in there and download everything you want. This is me, Eric Salahub. Um, just for a minute. Um, I'm doing this because I'm working with my faculty colleagues. And so if this is helpful, I want to be there for you. If you think you have things that you want me to hear about, you can email me. And so I don't know if I get inundated, I may not respond to every single email, but I will at least send you the link to the Dropbox. And that's me, Eric Salahub, Front Range Community College, instructional coach, philosophy faculty. Thank you very much for your time and good luck. And here's to making it through the rest of the semester in a positive way.